Today we will have another lesson for this week. It's about parabolas. Today we will discuss problems with equation y equals x squared. Before we start, let's take a look about this video.
Let's take a look at parabolas. If you've learned about quadratic equations, chances are you've probably already seen the term parabola. So let's go ahead and take a look at the definition you may have already learned for parabolas, as they're dealing with quadratic equations. Here, a parabola is the U-shaped graph of a quadratic function. So if we take a quadratic function and we graph it on the coordinate plane, we could get an upward-facing U-shape like this, or we could get a downward-facing U-shape that looks like this. Now, parabolas are not just limited to an upward or a downward-facing U-shape. There's a lot more to parabolas than just that. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple other definitions of parabolas to help us understand exactly what they are. That will also help us understand how parabolas are not just limited to opening upward or downward. Now, with this definition, it's sort of a visual look. Here, a parabola is the curve formed by the intersection of a plane and a cone when the plane is at the same angle as the side of the cone. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at that visually. So, let's draw a cone. Then, let's say we take a plane and intersect or slice that cone. But we want the plane to intersect at the same angle as the side of the cone. So, when we do that, we'll have a plane intersecting this cone. Something like this. Now, where the two intersect, this is what we get. This U shape right here. This is a parabola. And if we think back to the definition of a conic section is a curve that's formed by the intersection of a plane and a cone or a double cone. So a parabola is just a type of conic section. Neat. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at another definition. This one is a bit more detailed, and it deals with the graph. So with this definition, a parabola is the set of all points in a plane that are the same distance from a fixed point called the focus and a fixed line called the directrix. Well, what exactly does that mean? Let's take a look. Say we have this parabola here. We already know a little bit about it from what we learned with quadratic equations. This vertical line that cuts our parabola into two mirrored halves is called the axis of symmetry. Now, where the axis of symmetry meets the parabola, this point right here is called the vertex. Now, with this definition, we actually introduced a couple more terms, the focus and the directrix. Let's look at those. This line right here that runs perpendicular to the axis of symmetry is the directrix. Now, following this definition, from the directrix, we can measure up to a point on the parabola. Then, from the parabola, that same point, we measure to a fixed point. That's called the focus. Those two measurements are the same. Any point that we pick on the parabola will have that. So, let's say that this point right here is our focus. So, that means we should be able to pick any point on this parabola. If we pick this point right here, measuring from that point to the focus, and then from that same point to the directrix, these two line segments are the same length. That will happen with any point on the parabola. So if we pick another point on the parabola, and we measure the distance from that point to the focus, and then from that same point to the directrix, these two line segments have the same length. And we can keep doing this again and again for any point on the parabola. The distance from the point on the parabola to the focus and that same point on the parabola to the directrix will be the exact same. They'll be the same distance. Neat. With these new definitions we introduced, parabolas are no longer limited to just being vertical, opening upward or downward. We can see other types of parabolas now too. You might also see horizontal parabolas. Those open left or right. So we can have a parabola that will open like this to the right, or we can also see a horizontal parabola that opens like this to the left. One important thing to note is that only the vertical parabolas pass the vertical line test. So these parabolas are the only kinds that are functions. These other types of parabolas are parabolas, but they fail the vertical line test, so they are not functions. So now we know a whole lot more about parabolas.
In this problem, you will explore parabolas with the equation y equals a times x squared. Part A. What is an equation of the parabola with vertex at the origin and focus 0, 2? Start by graphing the vertex and the focus. How can you tell if this is a vertical or horizontal parabola? The focus and the vertex are on the axis of symmetry. In this case, they both lie on the y-axis, so the parabola is vertical. The focus is directly above the vertex, so this is a vertical parabola with vertex at the origin. The focus is the point with coordinates 0, c, so in this case, c equals 2. Write the standard form of the equation of a parabola. Now substitute 2 for c. And simplify. The equation of the parabola is y equals 1/8 times x squared. Part B. What are the vertex, focus, and directrix of the parabola with equation y equals -1/12 times x squared? This is a vertical parabola. The vertex is at the origin and a equals -1/12. Find c. What does the sign of a tell you about the graph? Since a is negative, the parabola opens downward. Graph the parabola. Write the equation relating a and c. Now substitute -1/12 for a. Write the cross products. Divide each side by 4 to solve for c. Since c equals -3 and the vertex is at the origin, you can conclude that the focus is the point 0, -3. And the directrix is the line with equation y equals 3.
From the videos, we learn about parabolas, the definition of parabola, we have focus and directrix. So our objective for this week is to write the equation of a parabola and to graph parabolas. So we understand from the video that the parabola is the set of all points in a plane that are the same distance from a fixed line in a fixed point, not on the line. And the fixed point is called the focus of a parabola, and the fixed line is called the directrix. The distance between the vertex and the focus is the focal length of the parabola. So it means from the central origin 0, 0, we have the same distance from focus and the directrix. Here we have, from the key concept, we have this graph. This is a vertical parabola. Since our axis of symmetry and point of focus is on the y-axis, this is a vertical parabola. Axis of symmetry is a line that divides our graph into two congruent parts. And in the right side, we have horizontal parabola. We have the focus that is on the x-axis. The same thing with the center or origin. Remember, always remember that the directrix is always, or the focus is always above or directly above the origin. And the directrix is directly under the origin or the center. So in this lesson, we will consider vertical parabolas, and each of which has a vertical axis of symmetry and horizontal directrix. And horizontal parabolas, each of which has horizontal axis of symmetry and a vertical directrix. You can find the equation of vertical parabola with vertex at the origin by using the geometric definition. If you denote the focus by 0C, remember C stands for the focus. The directrix is the line with equation y equals negative c. So remember directrix, we will find the directrix on the y-axis. So y equals negative c, and c is the focus. From this graph, we have vertical parabola. It opens upward. Our focus is this point. From the origin, we have 1 point. So it means our focus is 0C, and C stands for the focus. So here we have directrix. So remember, directrix is a line below our origin, and that is also 1 unit. So remember, we have equal distance from the focus to a point on a parabola or our graph to the line of directrix. So it will be directrix equals y equals negative c. And we have the ordered pair x, negative c, wherein x will be 0 or other number. It depends on the given. In problem number 1, we will solve parabolas with equation y equals ax squared. In part A, the question is, what is an equation of the parabola with vertex at the origin and focus 0, 2? Again, what is an equation of the parabola with vertex at the origin? So origin means we have 0, 0 as our vertex. And how about for focus? Our focus is 0, 2. So those are the given. So what we need to know? We need to know the equation. Now given is the origin, vertex, and that is origin, and focus. We can solve for the equation. Okay, what is the standard form of the parabola? The standard form of the parabola is y equals 1 over 4 times c times x squared, or 1 over 4c times x squared. Okay, now we can make a graph. Okay, we have a x and y axis. So it means we have vertex and the origin is 0, 0. We will point here, and we have focus 0, 2. So it means we have positive 2 on the y-axis. So this will be our focus. Now we can extend our graph. So here we have a vertical parabola. It opens upward. How can we know if it's opens upward? Remember, our A is positive number. So if we have positive number, it opens upward. And if we have a negative number from A, it means our graph opens downward. I'll extend my graph like this. Go back to our equation. Solving equation y equals 1 over 4c equal times x squared. That is our standard of our parabola, standard form of our parabola. And then substitute for the values. We have y equals 1 over 4 times what is c? Our c from the given is our focus, which is 2. So 4 times 2 x squared. So it means our equation is 1 over 8 times x squared, because 4 times 2 is 8, and put that in on our denominator. So the final answer is y equals 1 over 8 times x squared. This is for part A. Part B, what are the focus and the directives of the parabola with equation y equals x squared, or y equals negative 1 over 12 times x squared. So we need to find focus, or C, and directrix. And we have the given equation y equals negative 1 over 12 times x squared. So this is in the form of y equals ax squared. Look at our a. Our a is negative 1 over 12. So it means our graph opens downward. If our a is negative, it opens downward. Okay, next. So our step 1 is we will write y equals negative 1 over 12 times x squared. It's our given. And we have a equals negative 1 over 12. Next, our standard form is a equals 1 over 4 times c. Okay, what's the relationship between a and c? So we need to write the equation in terms of, we have relation of a and c. So we will use a equals 1 over 4 times c. And a from the given is what? Negative 1 over 12. Okay, so this is the way we can solve for c. So negative 1 over 12 is equal to 1 over 4 times c. And how can we solve for c? We will cross multiply. So 4c times negative 1 is negative 4c. And 12 times 1 is 12. To solve for c, we will divide both sides by negative 4. So c is equal to negative 3, because 12 divided by negative 4 is negative 3. So it means our center, or our focus, is negative 3. So we can write this as 0, negative 3. Let's take a graph. So we will graph the parabola with the equation y equals negative 1 over 12 times x squared. So we have the focus 0, negative 3, and it lies on the y-axis. So the point will be here. Negative 3 from the center or point of origin. Okay, and then we have the vertex. Since we know that A is negative, our graph will be, or it opens downward. Now, what is our directrix? So remember, when we want to find directrix, this is the same distance from the center to the focus. So we will count again 3 units from the origin going upward. Since we have 3 units downward to going to our focus, we will count also 3 units upward. 1, 2, 3. So it means our directrix, or the line of directrix, will be here. That is for part B. Let us answer Unit 1, letter A. The question is, what is an equation of the parabola with vertex 0, 0 and focus 0, negative 1.5? Our first step from this question is, we will find the given. So our given is focus, which is 0, negative 1.5, and vertex 0, 0. Okay, now we have vertex and focus. We will write the standard form. Our standard form is y equals negative 1 over 4 c times x squared. Y equals 1 over 4 times what is our value of c, or our focus, and that is negative 1.5. And we have x squared. Then simplify. Y equals 1 over, what is 4 times negative 1.5? It will be positive 6. And we have x squared. So our equation is y equals 1 over 6 times x squared. Okay, now it's time for letter B. For letter B, the question is, what are the vertex, focus, and directrix of the parabola with equation y equals x squared over 4? We need to find the vertex, or the center, focus, or C, and the directrix. Now, write the given, y equals x squared over 4. Okay, what is our A? Our A is 1 over 4. It is positive, so it opens downward. So our graph opens downward. From the question, we have y equals x squared over 4. And our A is 1 over 4. It opens upward since our A is positive. So remember, if A is positive, our graph opens upward. So the graph will be like this, something like this. Now we have A equals 1 over 4 times C. Then what is our A from the given? Our A is 1 over 4 is equal to 1 over 4 times C. Since we need to find C, or the focus, we will cross multiply. What is 1 times 4C? Great. And 4 times 1 is 4. Divide both sides by 4 to get C. So C is equal to, what is 4 divided by 4? 1. So it means our C is equal to 1. And our focus will be 0, positive 1. How about for the vertex? So remember, vertex is the center. So to find the center, or the vertex, we can use the standard form. We have y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And we can use x to find x is equal to negative b over 2a. First, let's solve for x. X equals negative. What is b from our given? We have y equals x squared over 4. Do we have value of b? We don't have. So we will use, or we will put 0 and 2 times a. Our a is 1 over 4. So simplify, what is negative 0 times 2, or negative 0 divided by 2 times 1 over 4? So it will be 0. Now to solve for y, y equals a, which is 1 over 4 from the given, times x, which is 0. X equals 0, so 0 squared plus bx. Since we don't have b, I will write 0, and c, we don't have any value for c, so I'll write 0 again. So simplify, what is 1 over 4 times 0 squared plus 0 plus 0? So y is equal to 0. Now, what is our vertex or center? We have x and y. So xy is 0, 0, and now this is our vertex or center. And that is for letter B. Now we can draw the graph like this. So I will make a straight line, one straight line for x and y axis. Since our focus is, we have 1, so positive 1, so 0, 1, or 1 unit from the point of origin, since our vertex is 0, 0. So I will draw here. Now, since we have positive number from A, which is 1 over 4, our graph opens upward. And the graph will be like this. U-shape opens upward and from the center of origin or center. Now we have focus. Since 0, 1 is the focus, now what is our directrix? Remember, our directrix or a line from the center of origin are the equal distance. So since we have 1 unit from the focus, we will have also 1 unit down for the directrix. So 0, 1 for the focus, I will put 0, negative 1 for the directrix. This is the graph of y equals x squared over 4, wherein 0, 1 is our focus and 0, negative 1 is our directrix. Y equals negative 1. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.